hour one of our program. I'm pleased to say that Peter Ward, who is director of the Lindenhurst Memorial Library on Long Island, is joining us. Peter is going to share with us some information about what the situation's been like for the library, which has served as an official disaster recovery center in the aftermath of some of that wicked weather that we had in 2012, what that experience has been like. Peter, first of all, good morning. Welcome to our program.
Good morning, Bob.
And by the way, I will say to you, since you and I were talking a little bit last night, as I look to my left in the studio where I am here at WFAN, only you will appreciate this, Peter, as a Jets fan. I look to my left and I have a direct eye contact with a big picture of Joe Willie Namath that is signed here.
Well, you know, Bob, us old Jet fans, you always can tell when the Jets have had a bad season with an old Jet fan, because that's the only person we talk about after the season is Joe Willie. You know, 1969, Super Bowl III. If I can just share this with you, you know, we just lived to hear Namath to Maynard touchdown, and what do we get this season? Sanchez to the other team touchdown. There's a nuance there that has to be appreciated.
Peter, you're going to share an awful lot with us in the course of this hour. I mentioned in introducing you, you are director of the Lindenhurst Memorial Library. Before we get into talking about the work of serving as a disaster recovery center, let's talk a little bit about the library's operation. What's it like directing your facility? What sort of an operation do you have?
Well, we're a public library. We served an area in Lindenhurst of about 43,000 people, and we offer a variety of services, meeting the interests and needs of so many different types of people. We circulate books, of course. That's a traditional service. We also have online services. We have a lot of programming that we do, and it's great to be in a position where you can serve the needs of lifelong learners, and that, to a large extent, is almost everybody. And I think every day that I go to work, it's always you always come back. You've learned something new, either about people or about certain subjects, and it's for me. I was born to be a librarian because I always have questions, and not too many answers, but I have a lot of questions.
Well, doesn't it make the job also a constant challenge if you're working with lifelong learners? Absolutely, because there's no way that you can anticipate what people need to know, what people want to know, with any degree of certainty. So you're always challenged to try to meet those needs in new and innovative ways, especially with information technology being what it is, is that today it's the e-book that's in. Tomorrow it could be something totally different. All right, I mentioned the fact that the operation got changed, I'm assuming in a drastic fashion, in the aftermath of Hurricane Sandy. In your own words, take us back to that time. What was that like?
Well, I myself, I live in West Islip, and my family and I were evacuated to a shelter in Brentwood. So we went there, and that was an experience in itself. I went there with my two sons and my wife, and at some point in time, my son and I decided we were going to try to escape because my wife was getting a little too comfortable there, and we escaped, went back, got the car, and broke her and my other son out of there. I have to admit, though, the Red Cross that set up that shelter did a fantastic job for so many people. So I went to work, the following day, I knew that Lindenhurst was hit. I grew up in Lindenhurst, and I know what south of Montauk is like and what it's exposed to. And we have a lot of people, almost all our people at Lindenhurst Memorial Library live in Lindenhurst. So I wasn't quite sure if I had enough people to open up the library. the library was in pretty good shape. We had power, we had heat, we had lights, everything. So I called around and I realized that we had enough, we had enough people. The next day we opened, and more and more we heard about what the situation was, the more we felt compelled that we had to do more than what we regularly do. So one of the things that we immediately became was a warming center and a place where people could charge their handheld devices and their cell phones and things like that. Many, many libraries across Long Island did that, And but then I said to myself, well, Lindenhurst is I don't want to use this word special, but it wasn't that special. It was just horrific. In a situation where we had many, many people in need of getting different types of services. So I reached out to FEMA and said, listen, we've been hit hard. We have a facility here that's up and working. There are many, many things that would be here for you to use, meeting rooms, the technology that we have. And I sent this to the regional office, and I got an email message back that said, "Oh, thank you so much. We'll send it to the appropriate people in your area." And I thought, well, okay, we tried our best. And the next day, I got a call from Mayor Tom Brennan, the mayor of the village of Lindenhurst, and he said, "Peter, we want to see what kind of facility you have." And he came over, and I know Tom a long time, and he looked around, and I said, "Tom, however you're working with FEMA in the county, you got to think of us here." So he left, and I thought, okay, maybe we'll do something. And then I get a call from Suffolk, almost like maybe an hour later, a call from Suffolk County Executive Steve Ballone saying, "Peter, how can we make use of your facility?" I said, "Steve, whatever you need, we can help you." Well, it seemed like it wasn't too much later that we had a FEMA worker come down. It was only one FEMA worker to begin with. And Bob, I'll tell you, like the next day, we had an army of FEMA people come down, set up in our community room downstairs, put in communications like that. First, we had to help them with our computers and things like that. And we had hundreds of people coming through the door to learn from FEMA what services were available to them, help with filling out applications. And FEMA workers and also some emergency county people and state people were also set up. And they're actually, FEMA is still at our library. And we had many, many people from Lindenhurst and the surrounding areas come in and take advantage of the fact that FEMA was right there in their own neighborhood, which was just, I have to tell you, in nearly 30 years of working in libraries, absolutely the highlight of my career was having the library being able to provide that type of assistance. And our own guys, my own LML crew, they did a fantastic job. A lot of them, like I said, live in Lindenhurst. They had their own problems because of Sandy. They came in. It's seamless. They intuitively knew what they had to do in order to participate in this way. So we provided information. We let people know that FEMA was here. We provided information that FEMA had given us and other information that we had in terms of disaster recovery and disaster relief. And some of the people coming through the door, you can't help but when you're down there, you hear what their situation is. We had one young mother who didn't know where her kids were going to sleep. We had people whose homes were totally destroyed. A lifetime of building a home and taking care of it gone. So there were some heartbreaking stories. But on the other side of that, we were happy that we were in a position to provide assistance.
As I'm listening to you, I'm thinking of something that years back we did a discussion on this program about the significance of libraries and the impact that technology was having on what some would view as, quote-unquote, the need for libraries. And as I listen to you talk about this experience, I'm thinking this kind of answers that whole mindset Internet and people's ability to access information remotely could somehow replace the need for libraries. Here's a service that most people would never even have thought of being associated with a library.
Well, absolutely. And I mean, I know, again, being in the business, so to speak, I've been confronted with the question, why do we still need a public library when we have the internet and other forms of information technology? Well, the library is so community-based and based on having a purpose, I should say, having a purpose to meet the needs of a specific community, that, there's no aspect, there's no service that the internet can provide, or whatever replaces the internet that can replace that. As long as there's a need for community, as long as there's a special place in our national fabric for that sense of community, public libraries are going to be there filling a need. And, since we're talking about how libraries responded to Sandy, I have to say that my colleagues in other libraries across Suffolk County stepped up beautifully to help their community. So it wasn't just an isolated case of one public library or two public libraries doing extraordinary things. It was really a case of all the public libraries in Suffolk County, and my friends in Nassau too, doing what they would naturally do in a situation like that, is do whatever they had to do in order to meet that need. So even though it was a disaster for Long Island, it was an opportunity for libraries on Long Island to respond and answer that question that you posed, Bob, is why do we still need public libraries? Well, this is one reason why we still need public libraries.
One of the things that you mentioned in the first portion of our discussion, Peter, was you said that FEMA is still at the library. Now, to some, that might seem surprising. What is the situation like today?
Well, yeah. I mean, we're a little surprised that FEMA is still there too, but we still have many people coming in needing help with applications for FEMA programs and SBA programs, and the situation is, because Lindenhurst was so hard hit, there are many people who think that because they have homeowners insurance or flood insurance that they don't qualify for FEMA aid, but they do. FEMA closed a couple of centers, and now we're the only disaster recovery center, I think, definitely in Suffolk, but I think a large part of Nassau too. And there's still demand. I mean, the fact that FEMA is still at our library just goes to accentuate just how bad the storm was in terms of its effects on people.
And when we talk about, you talk about the effects of the storm, are people starting to get their lives back to normal?
Yeah, sure. That's one thing. I grew up in Lindenhurst, so I have a strong affinity for Lindenhurst. And one of the things that I'm so proud of in terms of my Lindenhurst friends and neighbors is their ability to bounce back. I mean, they got hit hard, and in a lot of cases, you would think that Lindenhurst was down for the count, but you see them coming. You see them coming back. They're off the canvas, if I can use a sports metaphor. They're coming off the canvas. They're coming back strong. They're rebuilding their neighborhoods. They're back to planning for their future, and that's been most gratifying to me. Like I say, being a Lindenhurst guy, and the fact that we're helping in that process is gratifying for everybody at Lindenhurst Library.
I understand there's situations too where people are seeking things like it's not just money to help out with home repairs, but it might be something like money for rental assistance.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, what really impressed me was that between the state and county and FEMA, there were so many different programs to help in different ways. Well, you mentioned money to rent a place to live because your house was destroyed. You had family services that would help you, with your kids if there was a situation like that. There were counseling services. Oh, I forgot to mention the Red Cross is at the library too. Red Cross provided so many different things. As a matter of fact, over at Camp Bulldog in Lindenhurst, I'm pretty sure that the Red Cross was along with other volunteer groups in Lindenhurst, is providing some of the necessities of life, which, within the context of the storm have changed a little bit. Whereas before it was bread and milk, now it's mold remover and cleaner and blankets and things of that sort. So it's very extensive in terms of the range of services and programs that are available to help in this situation.
You mentioned the term Camp Bulldog. Some of the people listening to us are going to say, "What's that?"
Well, Camp Bulldog was set up in Shore Road Park, and it was put together by volunteers to provide food, cleaning supplies, and other things like that to help people, clean up after the storm and just make it easier for people to recover from this. And that has been another fantastic effort on the part of my Lindenhurst friends in response to this. And of course, it's called Camp Bulldog because Lindenhurst, we are the Bulldogs.
Early on in our discussion, we were talking about the library basically opening as a warming center and having the charging stations available. And as you said that, I was thinking also, because so often in the days and weeks after Hurricane Sandy, we heard about people who were without power for extended periods of time. What was the feedback that you got from people who came and took advantage of the library being available in this fashion for them? Because I'm assuming, they were existing and sometimes for weeks without any sources of power.
They were absolutely ecstatic that they had a place in their own community they could go. You remember right after Sandy, the weather turned real cold. And we had many, many older people whose houses didn't have power, didn't have heat. We had people whose houses were destroyed, unlivable. They came to the library. We opened our library extended hours so we could accommodate those people. We set up one of our smaller community rooms with a television so that they could watch the news and find out what's going on. And we had coffee and cake there for them, and they appreciated that so much. And we were so happy to be able to do that. It was, relatively small things like that made their lives so much better within the context of a terrible situation. And there was a lot of goodwill that was generated from that effort, and we hope to capitalize that on the future and do more and more things like this. This was a learning experience for us too, Bob, because as much as librarians and library directors and library trustees talk about libraries and what they can do and their potential, this is one occasion where we had, again, the chance to show exactly how we can step up. And you know what? Libraries across Long Island passed that test in a big way. And now we are more certain in our mind that we can respond to these challenges, and we can be an important part of recovery, or an important part rebuilding communities or doing more things like this.
You know, as you say that, I was thinking earlier in our discussion that, you know, though it was a learning experience for you, it's not something that you could really prepare for. It's not like you could do drills for something like this, I'm assuming.
Absolutely, and that was the beauty of it. Because of the way libraries are organized, small organizations that can have a really big footprint because of the kind of staff that they have and the kind of technology that they have available to them, the flexibility that libraries had to respond to this was really impressive, where you had much larger organizations, much more bureaucratic. Because of that, not able to respond quickly enough, let's say. Okay, Governor Cuomo has a whole list of them that he's going to basically assassinate on his way to the presidency. But hope the governor's not listening. But you know, we were able to do that, and me and my friend Kevin Verbesey, who's the director of SCRS, we talked about that a lot in the aftermath of Sandy. Look at how we could respond, and a large part of that is because of the way we're organized and how we are able to use resources in that way.
You know, you mentioned about the extended hours. You stayed open during Veterans Day too, right?
Oh, we stayed open. We stayed open on Christmas Eve and Thanksgiving and Veterans Day. Yes.
What was that experience like? Because those are normal holidays for your operation.
Well, yeah, the key word that you used there was normal. This was a very not normal situation. So, again, my library board understood that fully, and we extended our hours. We stayed open. FEMA was there. We're there. So, I went in. I had a couple of my maintenance guys. They were there too, and whatever staff we needed, there was no problem. Again, my LML crew, you didn't really have to sit down with them and have a big staff meeting and explain to them the situation. They knew it, and intuitively they knew how to respond, you know. And that is also one of the things that I'm always going to remember about this, is how my guys stepped up. You know, how my own guys stepped up. And you know what it was? What it felt like? It felt like there was nothing more important than what we had to do in order to serve our community. And being able to do that was a great feeling.
Now, you had the Suffolk County Executive, Steve Ballone, actually visit the library. What was that experience like?
Well, you know, Steve, he's not born and bred a Lindy guy. He used to live in Lindenhurst, so we'll give him that, okay? He came down. That guy was, I'll tell you, my man Steve was one of the hardest working people, along with Mayor Tom Brennan, during the whole crisis. He came down. He spoke to the people. There was a crowd full of people in our meeting room. They were so happy to see him. He took down names, you know, to follow up with problems that they had. And, you know, he was grateful that we were able to partner with the county in doing this. And, of course, we took a picture and everything. And, again, that was also gratifying to me personally to see an elected public official like that on the job. You know, he didn't come in with a whole entourage of photographers. There was no press conference. He came in, he talked to the people, took a picture with us, told a few jokes, and then went on to the next place where he had to take care of business related to Sandy. So that was fantastic. And Tom Brennan, the mayor of Lindenhurst, I can't say enough about him. In the days after Sandy, he was all over the place. So I got to give a shout out to my boys, Tom and Steve, for the fantastic work they did too.
When you talk about the way in which this has impacted your, and I'll use the air quotes here, normal operations, What has this meant for the kinds of programs that you normally would put on in December and January, let's say?
Well, obviously we had to cancel a lot of our normal programs, the programs that we usually do. And that being said, though, this has been the most important program we've ever had in our library in our history, and probably in the future. So yeah, we had to cancel some programs, but again, because of the circumstances, the library was able to offer a program that is again probably the most important program we've ever been involved in.
I'm going to ask you a question based on what I've gleaned from your personality in speaking with you last night and also from today. It is that you have a, shall we say, developed sense of humor. How has that helped you in, I guess, sort of handling some of those curves that come your way in doing this kind of work, which some would say is, not necessarily the first mission that some would think would come to mind for a library?
Well, I think it's very important. I mean, you had, first of all, a good sense of humor usually means that you have a good sense of optimism, and I think that's, and a lot of our guys in our library present that type of positive attitude. And I think for people coming into our library, whether they're coming in to get warm or recharge their phones, or see FEMA or the county people that were there, or the state people that were there, it was important to see that there were people in Lindenhurst who had faith in the future, that the future is going to be better than what it is today. So yeah, a good sense of humor was absolutely necessary, and a sense of optimism was absolutely necessary in order to encourage our friends and neighbors to take courage, hang in there. It's going to get better. We're there for you.
And what is planned in the days and months ahead? Are you moving in the situation to try to get your operations, quote, back to normal?
Oh yeah, sure. We're planning for the day when we're not a disaster recovery center. One of the programs we have on tap is we're going to, again, because of our experience with this, we kind of have experience now in this area, and we have confidence. So we're gonna set up ourselves as a rehab center for jet fans. But I might have to pass that by. I might have to pass that by the library board, and I don't know if we can handle the traffic. You know what I mean? I had to get that in there, Bob.
You think they've seen some traffic backups on Long Island?
Yeah, we might have to build another parking lot.
I didn't see that one coming. That's a good one. One of the things that I had read about in preparation for our discussion today that occurred during this time that the library has been serving as a disaster recovery center is also that residents at times were able to come into the library and take advantage of, I guess, of some health services, things like vaccines and the like.
Oh, yeah. That's what the Red Cross did, and the county did. We had flu vaccine, we had tetanus shots because of the flooding, which the water was filthy. It was, because of the toxic materials that were in the water. People were encouraged that if their tetanus shot wasn't up to date, to get one. So, we had nursing students from the nursing programs around Suffolk County come to the library and be able to provide flu shots and tetanus shots, and that was very interesting.
On a normal day, during your normal operation period, other than this time, how many people would come to the library? And I'm interested in comparing this to how many people that you could see or did see at points when you were serving as a disaster recovery center.
anywhere from, don't forget we have people who walk in and walk out because they're returning stuff and stuff like that. It could be anywhere from 200 to 300 people a day.
Okay.
And I'm anticipating your next question. During this period of time when we're functioning as a 4 times that number, 5 times that number.
Wow.
Yeah, the parking lot's always full. There's always people. Going downstairs to talk to the agencies that are down there. Sometimes they'll stop upstairs, take a look around, take advantage of what they see. That's also a good thing.
And in terms of people using the internet, how much did your traffic there increase?
There never was a station that wasn't empty. People were using the internet left and right to get in touch with their loved ones, to take care of business they had to take care of online. We have Wi-Fi at the library. They brought their laptops. Especially in the most recent days after Sandy, we were like Internet Central for a lot of folks. And again, like I said before, because of the way we're organized, because of the kind of technology infrastructure we have, we filled that need beautifully.
You don't stop and think about it. I was listening to it as you were saying it. Don't stop and think about just how dependent we are on technology. I mean, for many people, the idea of them not being able to access the internet, they wouldn't know how to exist.
That's a very good point, Bob, and I'll tell you, that point came through very clear after Sandy, because with the power down and people not having access to their home computers, sometimes their cell phones didn't work. I mean, it almost created a panic for some people. We have become much more dependent on handheld devices, cell phones, the internet, and information technology in general.
Tell me about what it was like November 15th when there were hot meals served by the Red Cross.
Oh, that was another important day for us during this period of time. Red Cross came. They served meals. We also had people volunteer from the community, restaurant owners who stepped up and wanted to serve food, and people took full advantage of that. People came from not only Lindenhurst but from surrounding areas, because the extent of the damage was such that many people didn't even have a place where they could get a hot meal. So again, that was another area where we were able to help out.
This whole experience, how did this change you, if at all?
Well, I've always been a big proponent of libraries, even before I was a librarian, and I've always said, listen, there's a lot of talk about that libraries are irrelevant, but I only see more and more potential. And this situation, as terrible as it was, very much proved that libraries have an increasingly important place in our life. And the potential is tremendous. What I'm hoping for is that at some point, libraries are going to sit down with the folks who do emergency planning for the county and the state and integrate libraries more fully in the planning that's going to be done, as a result of Sandy. So I can see us having a place at the table, an important place at the table. And I really do hope that, Steve Ballone and the governor take advantage of our services in planning for emergency recovery and relief in the future. So that's my optimism with regard to libraries in this kind of situation. So I'm very optimistic. I'm probably I'm probably more optimistic about the future of libraries and their potential than I've ever been in my life.
Has there been any receptiveness to that idea?
I think so. We're not at that point yet where, people in the emergency services field are sitting down to put pen to paper to come up with better plans. But I know that, again, talking to my friend Kevin Verbisi and some of my colleagues in Nassau and Suffolk, we're ready to step up and raise our hand and say, don't forget about us, we can help. So, again, I just know, I feel it in my gut that we're going to have an important role in those plans.
Are there things that you can use that you need?
Yeah, you know what we could use? I'm glad you asked that, Bob. And I hope the governor is listening now. And I hope Steve Ballone is listening. What libraries could use are big generators that would keep them with power and heat during a situation like that. Now, most libraries did pretty well in terms of keeping their power and heat, but there were some that were hit hard and didn't have power and heat. Those libraries really did a remarkable job because even they were able to provide some type of service to their community by using smaller generators. But that's probably what we could use, and also we could use more FaceTime with emergency service planners with regard to our role. So yeah, that's what we need. And you know what? Obviously, if we were to be more important in this area, if there's funding available, you know what? You couldn't spend that funding better than spending it on libraries with regard to these types of situations. You really couldn't, because like I said, we are so efficient and effective as organizations because of how we're organized and because how we respond, because of the kind of staff we have, because of the kind of technology infrastructure that we have. If you're going to spend money on this to make our recovery abilities even better in the future, spend it on public libraries.
Peter Ward, who is the director of the Lindenhurst Memorial Library, our guest in this first hour of our program on the Fan. Peter, thank you very much. Certainly the best with the library's efforts.
Thanks, Bob.